Good morning, everyone. Thank you for coming to our talk. My name is Gustavo Varela. Most of you know me as Gus in the States. Roberto is my colleague. We are sales engineers in Spain and Portugal. And what we will try to show you today is a vision of experiences in the field, in a customer, especially in Spain. But this is not the only vision. I hope there are too many visions or as many visions as users of SUSE Manager in our company or in our environment. So the first thing, I won't be happy if this session doesn't end with a lot of questions, or if you don't interrupt me and ask me. Don't ever think that the question is silly or stupid or whatever. Just ask, and we will be happy to reply. Okay, so let's begin. So basically, this is trying to be a journey on. So nowadays, or probably 10 years ago, you are in a position or in a role in your company in which you are a SysAdmin. So it has been talked a lot about DevOps and how we are trying to merge devs and operations. Our goal is to get you into a journey to get to be a DevAdmin. So that's kind of a mixture of a developer and system administrator. As I told you just some minutes before, this is just a way of seeing it. I hope you can use some of or all of the tools we are showing today, but it's not the only one. So what is a SysAdmin? So basically, most of you are SysAdmin. How many of you have been working as SysAdmin? Good. So you mostly probably know them because you are suffering or enjoying the work as a sysadmin in a daily basis. So you probably know or feel most of the tasks that you do on a daily basis. So the tasks that you do on a daily basis typically determine the tools you use, the way you behave, the way you react in front of problems or changes or anything that you interact on a daily basis on your job. So this is what a sysadmin typically do, and there are a lot of tools and frameworks that sysadmin typically use on a daily basis. There you have some of them. I started working back again like 12, 15 years ago in the Linux, Unix world. And tools have been changing a lot, and the things that we do have been changing a lot. Also, the amount of servers that I started working with in my first company back when I was at the university have been raising, and my job started working like with 20 servers, and today my last position as a sysadmin was like 7,000 servers or something like that, and I was responsible for all that. So as the tools change, the responsibility change, we need to change also, and so that is why the tools are adapting to the changes that we are facing right now. So back in the days, I remember like doing SSH, like trying to SSH and send multiple commands from one terminal. So today, our goal is to change that to SUSE Manager, for example, and see how that can work to orchestrate like the daily patching, the daily operational tasks that you can do, everything from a console or at least from there. So a lot have been talked, and probably the definition of DevOps as well as the definition of sysadmin was in your organization is probably different from the person that is sitting by your side. But it had come to a consensus, or this is some of the things that I have seen when visiting customers that already are kind of implementing what commonly is the vision of a DevOps engineer. So these guys work in an environment that has been trying to mix together. Probably this kind of philosophy started in startups where a lot of people are using like different hats. They are doing a lot of different technical positions together in one guy, because startups are like that. They don't have a lot of money, they don't have a lot of structure. So from that philosophy, DevOps started, and you probably know them. They are like doers. They are like go-to persons, like, okay, I need to be this task done by tomorrow, and whatever I know how to use and however I can do it, I'll do it. So they care a lot about their application working, the task being done, the delivery being done, and they really don't care about the infrastructure. You know, they really don't care about how the infrastructure is, if it's healthy. They just want the application to run, and they will do anything with the infrastructure to make it run. I mean, probably that is kind of, it gets us mad to the sysadministrators how these people treat our own pets, our own servers, that we know them because we rack them, because we cable them, because we know the model, we bought it at the end of the day. And they don't really care. They just care about their last release of the application coming and working and being released, and next move to the next thing. So we need to, I don't know, we need to kind of learn how to get going with this. So in the same way, they use a lot of different tools. Some of them, like Git, Jenkins, VirtualBox, Vagrant, a lot of different tools related to their daily activity that in some way reflect the way that they do the stuff, you know? So probably it's more like that, like they use Windows CP to, I was once in a customer, and I showed them this tool to upload some TARs files for the new releases, and also to download the log files. So next time I was into this customer, the guy told me, what was the name of this application that we use for reading logs? I was like thinking, what application I recommended? It was Windows CP, you know, it was, they were just reading logs with that. And the thing is also trying to get this kind of typical daily hacks that you do into a more organized way of doing it. Because we all have that kind of applications that we use on a daily basis that we feel comfortable, but let's try to put that on a workflow. Let's try to put that on a more standardized thing that everyone can use, that you feel like this is error prone, this is something that I have tested a lot of time and it works. So to sum up a little bit, we have the SysAdmin. We will be trying to leverage the work of the SysAdmin a little bit more with SUSE Manager. So we will do the same with the DevOps and try to mix it with the SysAdmin and try to get the SysAdmin to the 2020 better. Also trying to leverage the work with Salt Stack, which is included in SUSE Manager right now. And let's see if from that we can get our vision of what we call a DevAdmin. Okay? So, Roberto.
Now my turn. So, thank you, Gustavo. So to summarize, so we have this SysAdmin administrator. They love to connect to each of the servers, SSH, run bash scripts, have all the things under control, have all these things like an standardized way. So it's like, no, this is my server, my configuration, my standard. So if you are not in the standard, I don't like so much. I will try to push the customer to my standard to give it support, because I have to do a lot of things inside my infrastructure. So I cannot have thousands of configuration that are standards and support it, because at the end of all the IT organization have the same budget or less at the end of the day on each year, and you have to do more with less, no? So that's the reason because the DevAdmin, this DevAdmin appears. So it's like, now this new role is like, you take the things that the DevOps are doing and trying to move to the DevAdmin world, to the SysAdmin world. So it's like, they have a deep knowledge of the infrastructure because they know the servers, they know the configuration, the standardization, but they also have a deep knowledge of the process, the business requirements. So it's like one step forward, thinking out of the box. So it's like, be an open mind. So because I cannot approach the problems of today with the technology from 10 years ago, because I cannot achieve the results and will not be no efficiency. So I change the way that you afford the requirements. So it's not trying to the customer fits to my requirements. It's like trying to fit my solution to each customer. So no more standard solution for all. It's like one solution, one problem, one development. And trying to recycle the code, the scripts, whatever you do is like avoid to repeat the work, because repeat the work is losing time and losing money at the end of the time. And one of the key points of this philosophy is avoid this one tool solution for everything. So it's like, no, with one tool I will configure, deploy, and all these things, because you have to think in integrated solution and a modular design, like more focus in a microservice world to this new environment. But how we can fix all these things with SUSE Manager and the configuration of the servers and so on. So it's like, okay, for this scenario, we select this set of tools. So we are in a use case. Okay, so we need to configure our infrastructure following the DevOps cycle. So we need to deploy code, the automated testing, the deployment, and the configuration. The key point here is, if you start using SaltStack, at the end the configuration convert from the typical situation that you are writing a script or modifying files, you program in or develop the configuration of your machine. So if now you are a SysAdmin that converts a little bit in a developer of your configuration of your infrastructure. Okay, so now you have YAML files that can be uploaded to the GitLab, for example, and you have a control version. Now you have the control version, you can have the GitLab, the Jenkins configuration, to trigger for any time that someone make a push in your configuration to trigger things that will happen. And also you can use, for example, a test infra that is an implementation from ptest, that is a framework to test infrastructure, okay? And also you use SUSE Manager, that is the key point on all this cycle that allow you do all the things and configure all the...
So how many, any of you don't know any particular application or framework that we are mentioning here?
Yeah.
So infratest is, yeah, so test infratest is a Python framework for testing. Like, yeah. So you write like small assertions on Python for testing infrastructure. So
it's like, for example, if you expect that some packages are installed or some services are up and running, you can describe in a Python script that this server have to be installed and have to be running. So it's like you test that the things that you are configuring using SaltStack with ptest, you will ensure that these things are configured as you expect.
So the rest just, sorry.
No,
so GitLab is a on-premise implementation of GitHub. So this is something that you can install on your data center to store privately your Git repositories. SaltStack, I hope most of you know it, configuration and orchestration manager. And Jenkins is a tool for automating tasks.
And the key point here is that for SUSE Manager, we use the state channels. the configuration channels that you can describe the configuration and the state of one of machine inside SUSE Manager. So it's like, well, we will see in a couple of slides, but it's like you define the state of one host or group of hosts, and this will be applied to these hosts or number of hosts. Yes?
Okay, so everything's open source. You're supposed to have your choice of tools. But as we get more into this whole DevOps environment, I always just hear GitLab, Jenkins, and Kubernetes, whereas something like SUSECON, they say Ansible, Puppet Chef, other solutions, but everybody always preaches GitLab, Jenkins, and Kubernetes.
Yeah.
So are people stuck with those? Or?
No, because it's another level, because if you have to remember that you are not developing or implementing applications, because here you are not the developer, so here is like you have to configure your host according to your requirements in the infrastructure, like you have to configure the monitoring tools, all the parameterization, the DNS, the network, the policy of the users, for example.
No, I get that, but I'm just saying, it's like if I was going to do something like configuration management, I might use SUSECON, I might use Puppet, right?
Yeah, yeah.
But every time, like for CIDC and stuff, I always hear Jenkins and I hear Kubernetes. It's like there's no alternative.
Well, I mean, this is, like I said, this is a vision. I mean, you can do with, you can do it with.
You have other tools like Bamboo, for example, from the suite from Atlassian. You also have the workflow also from GitLab, the CI/CD pipelines, so to deploy these jobs. But we select the Jenkins tool because I'm familiar with that, so I know how to make it work.
But there are
explain
other
the example.
options, yes. There are other options. You also have other decentralized repository tools. There are other software vendors that have other visions, like you can do also this kind of stuff with Azure, how it's called, Azure Teams also.
Yes, also.
So, I mean, what we are going to demonstrate later on this talk is a workflow that you can do, and you can remove this Jenkins and put Bamboo or
whatever you have in your organization.
I think it almost seems that everybody follows like Gartner or something, and so if Gartner says people do, and they go by the top tool or something.
Yeah.
So it's like keep hearing the same tool over and over. So everybody's like trying to be different, but they're all being the same, the same solution.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, when you will look.
Jenkins is the most sophisticated solution for scheduling and CI/CD deployments. Bamboo is kind of end of life. Atlassian only fixes on Jira and community tools and something like this. And so you, at the end of the day, you end up like this configuration, because all alternatives developed into different directions and not the original use case anymore. So you are kind of bound like to this.
And you need to think also that in open source, we are all in the community. So besides that we are a company that we try to like do enterprise software and all that, I mean, there's a community behind, and people are like interacting, and people like join together in groups and say, hey, I'm the group of Jenkins, and we are the group of Jenkins, and we do things together. And we are also all using the same tools because we are in a group. It's like, with the friends, like we are the group with the friends of the Barcelona supporter, the friends of the Real Madrid supporters. I don't know, I mean, it's just like we hang out and we do mostly the same things. So, I mean, I think it's just a human behavior, and this is seen because of the community and how we are on open source communities.
Okay, so at the end, how this will work in our setup. So, first of all, our DevAdmin guy that is sitting in their laptop. So, you have to configure different repositories from. For example, for this scenario, we select that it's better to have one repository for each state channel in SUSE Manager. Why? Because imagine that you are the infrastructure layer, so you take care about configuration, security, users, and backup, monitoring, or whatever. But the team from middleware, they want to deploy their own state channel for Apache or whatever application. So you can release this channel to that guy. They say, okay, that's your repository. That's your testing repository for your state channel. Work. I don't need it to interact with you to have ensure that all these things are properly configured and are working. Okay. So you configure each repository from the configuration regarding SALT and test infra, also for each state channel. You create the hook with the Jenkins. So it's like every time that someone's make a push to your code will trigger a Jenkins task or job that will be responsible for deploying this code in SUSE Manager. Okay, here we can open this door and this window and start working like, okay, if we are only working in the branch of development, we can only push the code to the development side or testing side. So for merging with production branch, you will open a merge request or pull request to merge with the code that you will have in SUSE Manager for production servers, okay? So but you only can do this if all the tests are okay and the quality guys review the new changes and are on sync or are okay with all these new changes. Okay?
What is the goal of, for example, test infra here? So if you have several groups that have SALT states on SUSE Manager, for example, or on the SALT master, what it could happen is that someone in a state could remove, for example, a package. So with test infra, you will test that your infrastructure is behaving like it should, okay? And besides, you are reviewing all the pull requests of states that are coming to SUSE Manager that will affect a specific server, and you will try to find problems between states. For example, one state that installs application server from the middleware team conflicts with another state from the operation teams that install the net backup.
Or a typical situation that someone add a new user or change some parameters in the user that you configure in your machine. So this type of situation that you can enter in conflicts with other teams, you can solve quickly because you have the reporting say, okay, I know that you are changing that and this test failed, so please resolve it, because if not, I don't approve this merge request and you will don't have your code in production. Okay, we have all these things configured. We have all this integration, these state channels, and so on, but I put in a scenario that, for example, we need to update one package or change one package. So the way that you will work with these things is quite different that you usually do. So the first step is contact with SUSE Manager to have clear that the new package is in the repositories, you have all these things updated, know how will be the scope of your change, okay? And after that, you will go to your repository and make a clone of the repository of the configuration that you will to update. For example, if you would like to install a new package in the baseline, for example, you clone the baseline channel configuration, you make the clone, modifying, and once you finish, make the push. Okay, I put it my new package. I will install the new version of Beam, for example. Okay, this push will trigger in Jenkins this. Okay, someone is making a push in this repository, so what do you have to do? Okay, I bring the code, and I will deploy in. I will contact SUSE Manager to have what will be the testing machine. Okay. So once we have the testing machine, I will deploy the code from SUSE Manager to this testing machine. So I will run the test. I take back the test and I say, okay, all the tests are okay, these packages are configured, all the things are correct. So I will push this configuration to the state channel. And once you have in the state channel, the DevAdmin will go to SUSE Manager and say, okay, apply this new configuration to all the minions that you have in SUSE Manager. So the main point here is that this guy, that is the DevAdmin, never will connect to any VM, to any host. Never gonna do an SSH to install something. So it's like, okay, I do for once, and I can replicate as much as minion I have in the SUSE Manager. So, and all these things, one of the, for me, is the key points that you have a tracking of the changes that you are doing in your infrastructure. Okay, so it's like simplifying your life, working as a code, you can control the changes that you are doing in your infrastructure. So you can check if someone add a new user, when they add the user, when they modify the version of the package, or whatever. Any question at this time? Okay, but this is very beautiful. This is the paper, but we will try to do some tests and showing the how it works.
So Roberto will now connect to a laboratory environment that we have back in Madrid, I think. And we will try to show you how it will be like a small workflow of trying to install a few packages with Salt and SUSE Manager, and how that should work, like doing all the GitHub commits, doing the testing with ptest, and doing the Jenkins automation and testing in an automated way. So we will do a quick workflow on that. So there it is. Can you?
Well, here we have our SUSE Manager.
Can you zoom up a little bit the
okay.
Control ++++.
Better?
One more, maybe. You see it? Yeah? Okay.
Sorry. Okay, so here we have our Jenkins. So we have, for example, in that case, the configuration channel update. So it's each time that the configuration channel that I want to update, they will trigger and deploy on SUSE Manager, and the testing channel related with this update. Okay.
So those are two tasks that will execute each. There is a hook that will execute those tasks every time I update any configuration channel on SUSE Manager. Okay, every time I update that configuration file.
Here we have our repositories. For example, we have
zoom.
Okay.
Bigger.
Oh.
There.
Okay, we'll have the SAL configuration, the SAL that we are talking about. For example, the Apache configuration from the middleware team. The test environment for testing, for example, the packet that you need to test in the testing machine. There are also state channels, and also the test itself from ptest. Okay, let me show you how it's configuring in SUSE Manager. So here we have the configuration.
Zoom. Better, thank you.
Sorry. So here we have the configuration channels with patient. Okay. And here we have, for example, this state channel. Okay, so we can see this init SLS configuration. Like, we only do that: install unzip OpenSSH, that the service SSD is up and running, and remove the bin package, for example.
Okay, so everyone can see that. So basically, on the first part of the part of the file is installing two packages, the unzip and the OpenSSH. Second part, it's removing Vim, because apparently Roberto is more an Emacs fan. And in the third part, where it says SSH service running enable true, it has to be, the SSH daemon has to be running, and that's what the state describes. It's just a dummy.
How does it connect back into Jenkins?
So this is the state that will configure your infrastructure, and in Jenkins, what you do. Yeah.
So here we have the repository. Okay, here we have this file. Okay, so the idea is each time that someone make a push, this trigger from Jenkins will take the code. So I will show you in a minute.
It drops it on the SUSE Manager server.
Come again?
Like when you go to SUSE Manager, it shows you where it's stored at in the files, right? So where does it drop it into SUSE Manager?
With an API. Yeah. So here, for example, so that's the key point to update it, the configuration file, the configuration channel in SUSE Manager. Okay?
Can you zoom out?
Yeah.
Please? Very good, thank you.
So this is basically,
To click it.
there. So this is basically,
I don't touch anything.
okay, don't touch, there. So this is basically connecting. Okay, it could be worse. It could not be working at all. So
the only thing here is like when you detect that the code is modifying, call the API from SUSE Manager to update the code that are configured in SUSE Manager. Okay, so that's all that this job doing. Okay.
It's basically just one call is like here it is that you okay, leave it.
It's Jenkins. I don't know. It's Java. So the idea is once this job is run, they trigger the next step, that is the configuration channel testing. So execute the tested that we have defined here. Okay, so for example, the root user have to be present, this Vim have to be installed, the Python scripts or Python packages have to be installed, the OpenSSH is installed, and the SSH is up and running, okay? And here you can see the latest results from our host. That's the latest test was failing because we are here. Because the Vim is not installed. So if you remember when I showed you the state channel from Sal, I wrote Vim package remove. So it's like the idea is to make it file to see the problem. Okay. So now we have to update the configuration channel and slow. Can you read it or no?
Maximize it.
Okay, so here I'm working in my workstation, so I am not connected to SUSE Manager or any other host because the host that we are using to testing is this one. So we don't have Vim installed. So here we have the SUSE Manager host. I'm connecting in my workstation is like to simulating that the DevAdmin start working in their laptop to deploy the new configuration. Okay. So I previously make the clone here, so I have the salt configuration. And here we have the init SLS. Okay, so at this point in time, okay, I will remove that. And I add to this package this Vim. Okay.
So he just found that someone put a line saying package remove Vim, and that is why in Jenkins it was failing the test. So he will be adding that to that salt state.
So now okay, so now
So he has a local repository, and what he just did is commit that change that he did that was
here's, for example, the scenario that we are not using in the production branch. So that's one of the best practices when you are working in a DevOps workflow. So you never work directly to production. So for example, you have the branch from development, and once you have this development testing and reviewing and all these things are okay, you promote and merge with production. Okay, but this is a scenario so dummy. So we directly work in development like production. Okay. So we make the push. So now, when I make this push, if we come back to the Jenkins, so with this speed, we will probably lose, but this is really a slow motion. So here we see that the configuration channel update, the last was 20 seconds ago.
if you look here,
And that configuration channel testing is running
over here.
right now.
Down
So it's like
down here is running the test because he just noticed that someone committed the modification to the GitLab. The webhook in the GitLab has a piece of code that we already showed that connects to the Jenkins, and the Jenkins is running the test.
And now, in the last test, we can check that now we are green, we are blue because we install Vim. So all the latest test is passed. So if we extend, now my colleagues are really happy because now they can use Vim in their VMs. So if we come back to the SUSE Manager, here that we have been removed, if we update, now we have reflected that the Vim is installed. And if we go to
So basically what it's running on the background is that when you push on Git, it also has a webhook that it calls the SUSE Manager API and update the file. It automatically updates the file on the SUSE Manager API. So all that is connected.
Is SUSE Manager actually storing the file, or is it just reading it from the repository?
No, it's storing the file.
Storing it.
Yeah. There are other alternatives, but this is the one that we choose because the way of interacting with SUSE Manager is not inside the SUSE Manager server. You need to use the API. That's the correct, well-citizen behaving way of interacting with SUSE Manager. You should be calling API calls to interact and to use SUSE Manager.
So at the end, so we have our SysAdmin guys that if our SysAdmin guys start using Suma, they start more powerful. So if they use Suma and Salt configuration, they are incredible, but if they move to DevAdmin, like, it's like in another plane of control of their infrastructure. So it's like you have all your infrastructure, your configuration, testing, and configure. And also, one scenario that is, for me, really useful is imagine that we have all these things done for /12 SP4, okay, and we need to deploy the new release in our infrastructure, but we need to test it. We need to test if all these monitoring applications are working, the backup is working, all this stuff that we need to test manually in the past. So you can change the mind and say, okay, deploy a new VM with /15, run all the configuration from Salt because you don't have to change it, because Salt take care about the operating system, and now you run the test to see if all these things are still working. So it's like you pass from the work from 3 or 2, more than 3 months working in the tuning of a new version of operating system in your infrastructure and in your data center to probably a couple of weeks for tuning and taking in account that, okay, this monitoring tool is not working because for /11 I have to update that and that and that. Okay, so the backup is running, all these connections between the LDAP configuration are okay, the users are the same, all other things are done. So I only have to wait for the monitoring guys develop the new agent and test the infrastructure or whatever.
Questions?
And that's all. So questions?
Yes.
Please, go ahead.
How does test infra compare to other tools like ServicePack?
ServicePack, do you know it?
No.
No. What is exactly ServicePack?
ServicePack, that's also a tool where you can test your the service.
Okay.
So just wanted to know if there's some.
No, because at the beginning, as we say, we select the tools that I used in the past to develop this type of things in my previous job. So,
Yeah.
so it's like I'm familiar with test infra because it's quite easy to wrote like SSH is up and running, this package is installed, but probably for most of you are familiar with other tools. It doesn't matter. At the end, it's like this modular design, this new philosophy that you can change it and replace it without broken your change of control. You know.
Yeah,
At the end, is a report from JUnit, so it's like the way that you obtain this report as you prefer.
You can replace server pack and test infra in that workflow, and it will work the same way. I mean, the thing is that Roberto used to work for a pharmaceutical company, which they had to do a lot of testing and quality assurance on the servers. So that is why he chose that particular tool. But probably your needs will be different. So that is why I started saying in this talk, this is one vision, but I completely sure that there will be
probably
hundreds of visions.
The blocks have to be these blocks. So you have to repository. Okay, you need a testing tool. You need an CI/CD or an orchestration tool of that. You need this configuration management software. But at the end, the pieces you select depends on your infrastructure, your experience, and your knowledge. The good point here is like it's a new way to use this SUSE Manager configuration to automate things that allows you to do more with less.
Are each one of the tools you guys showed, are they all on different hosts? Are you running more than one tool on one host in the example?
No, I have one of each tools on different VMs. So it's like one VM from GitLab. You can use GitHub, Bitbucket, whatever. We use Jenkins in another host, the SUSE Manager in another host, and the clients and these things in other hosts.
So if you choose to use SUSE Manager for the automation, where do you find the APIs that you programmed wrote the Python scripts from?
Okay, so that's the really good question, because at the beginning this is the point that fear missed a lot when I designed all these example, and at the end I only have to go to SUSE Manager, help, API, configuration channels, and you have an example, and it's like copy paste, change the user pass the IP, and it works quite nice. So for me it's like, woo, great. You're welcome.
More questions?
Or reflection, or whatever.
So I just wanted to mention one thing. So you asked the question about changing out the different tools from a DevOps perspective, and there's a DevOps periodic table. I don't know if you've ever seen the periodic table for DevOps, but it actually talks about.
It's from
Zebia
Labs. Yes, I can show you, because it's like
different options for DevOps tools.
Can SUSE Manager integrate to an Ansible tower instance?
So there was a talk by, I think it was Pablo Hernandez yesterday, which is a developer that is located on Canary Island, speaking about that, about SUSE Manager, Salt Stack, and Ansible. If you want, I can try to connect you with Pablo, so you can ask him questions. I'm not an experienced. I did work with Ansible like 5 years ago, 4 years ago, but I don't remember quite a lot. There have been a lot of beers in between. But yeah, there was a talk about that.
So what was the question?
How SUSE Manager could integrate with Ansible Tower or something like that.
So here, I think this is the question. The CI/CD things here is where deployments. I don't see the Jenkins continuous integration here. So here you have an example of 8 different tools. I don't know.
No, you cannot. There.
Oh, come on. It's like Jenkins, Codesy, Bamboo, BSTS, Travis CI, TeamCity, Circle CI, AWS, Code Build. So it's like in the DevOps environment. So there are a lot of tools. And my recommendation here is select one, start working, and if don't fit your requirements, change it. So it's like go faster to fail faster, and don't lose time put in a lot of effort to make it one tool's working, because probably it's not the right tool, but you need to start working on it.
Okay, if you don't have questions, we give you 5 minutes back. Thank you very much. Thank you for
Thank
all
you,
the
guys.
questions.